fans kept making their own changes. The most lasting changes happened in Atlantic City, New Jersey in 1930. Ruth Hoskins, a young Quaker teacher, and her friends renamed most of the properties after Atlantic City streets and neighborhoods. They were inspired by locations such as St. Charles Place, Venter Avenue, and Boardwalk. Do those sound familiar? Someone else came up with the color sequence and dividing the properties into groups of 3. Atlantic City players added hotels to the game as well. Around this time, a huge financial crisis called the Great Depression struck. All across the country, companies and farms went out of business. People had trouble paying for everything from food to rent. By 1932, 1 in 4 Americans had lost their jobs. One of them was named Charles Darrow.
Is that him?
This is him. Well, a drawing of him. He and his wife had dinner with friends who happened to have an Atlantic City game board. They taught the Darrows how to play. Charles loved the game and decided to make his own board. He asked his friends for copies of their rules. You know how some people have a knack for taking something great and making it even better? Well, that's what Charles Darrow did. The first board he made was round, although he quickly went back to the idea of a square board. The round one had inspired Charles to draw larger rectangles with bars of color at the top, one for each group of properties. He also created new designs with the help of stencils for the chance question marks, the waterworks faucet, and the electric company light bulb, and the railroad trains. Here was another big change. Instead of sharing the game freely like most others had done, Charles started selling sets to friends, which means he was making money off of it. Nearly broke, he thought it might be a good way to earn money for his family. He made each one by hand, drawing the game on a board on a large piece of oilcloth with pen and ink and using oil paint for the colored bands. He cut scraps of wood into houses and hotels and painted those too. He also typed up the rules. Each game took about 8 hours to make. Soon Charles Darrow advertised his version, claiming credit as the inventor of the game. So do you see a problem that we might have here with this?
Wait, let me see.
What do you think the problem would be about?
A little up.
What do you think would be the problem about him claiming to be the creator?
He's gonna get sued.
You think he's gonna get sued? Okay. That's a good guess.
He's gonna die. Oh.
With some of the profits he earned from selling his sets, Charles paid to have 500 game boards made by a small local printing firm. He asked a cartoonist friend, Franklin Alexander, to help him improve the look of the game. Franklin added the illustrations such as the go-to-jail police officer and Jake the Jailbird, the man behind the bars. Charles Darrow's colorful board made Monopoly look more dynamic than ever. In 1934, the 1934 board looks much like the one we know today. On the box, it said simply Monopoly. Charles tried to sell the game to 2 companies, one of which was Parker Brothers. Isn't that who Lizzie tried to sell hers to? Yeah. He was turned down, just like Lizzie was. But Charles did not give up. He persuaded a big department store and a famous toy store to stock his Monopoly sets for Christmas. Pretty soon, other stores signed on. So Parker Brothers didn't want it, but he was still selling it as his own game. Parker Brothers heard that Charles Darrow's Monopoly game was quickly becoming a big hit. It was selling so well that the no Parker Brothers had given him before was about to turn into a yes. Charles signed a contract with Parker Brothers that included naming him as the game's inventor. Uh-oh. Trouble? You know that Charles Monopoly did not invent Monopoly. Lizzie Maggie did. You also know that others made changes to her game as it was passed from community to community across the country. But Charles Darrow's round of changes, his success in selling it, and a new attitude at the Parker Brothers finally made the company give Monopoly a chance. To protect anyone from copying it, Parker Brothers needed a patent. Can you guess what happened next? When you tried to get a patent? What do you think happened?
They said someone already has a patent for this game.
Parker Brothers discovered Lizzie Maggie's patent. George Parker then remembered Lizzie trying to sell him her game years before. After having made an earlier claim that Monopoly was his idea, Charles Darrow admitted he had worked from an existing game, but he didn't know who created it. Today, we know that without Lizzie Maggie, there likely never would have been a game called Monopoly for us to play and love. Her initial ideas is the heart of the game, and without Charles Darrow, Monopoly would not have become America's favorite board game. All of the other folks who added their ideas along the way helped make it great too. So who wins this story? What do you think? Did Lizzie Maggie make a wrong move? Did Charles Darrow? Why do I feel like I skipped a whole lot? Oh, I did. Sorry, go back. Forget I just said that. I can edit that out. Parker Brothers had a big problem. The company needed to own Lizzie's patent to be able to sell Monopoly. In November 1935, George Parker traveled by train to Lizzie's home to talk to her. He offered $500 and promised to publish her original Landlord's game as well as 2 other games she also invented. So, do you think $500 was enough for that? For how much Monopoly made? Right? She didn't do so well on that. Lizzie Maggie agreed, and on the last day of December, more than 30 years after she invented the board game, Parker Brothers owned all of the rights to Monopoly. Charles Darrow was about to become a millionaire. So this guy who claimed it was his idea sold it to Lizzie got Lizzie to sell him her patent for $500, only $500, and now this guy was about to become a millionaire from her game. Wait, what about Lizzie? Charles was going to make millions, and she was getting only $500? The whole reason she invented the Landlord's game was to show how unfair money issues can be when someone takes sole control over a property. At first, Lizzie Maggie was content with the deal she struck because her ideas would finally reach a mass audience. But she didn't stay content. When Lizzie Maggie saw Monopoly for sale in 1936, with Charles Darrow named as its inventor,